Welcome to Real Demers, where we champion the B-sides, the offbeat, and the overlooked. We've worked in and around Hollywood, so we know just how hard it is to get a movie made. This is our space to celebrate cinematic misfits that we hope you'll enjoy as much as we do. Los Angeles and detective stories go together like peanut butter and jelly. LA is home to Philip Marlowe, Lou Archer, and seemingly countless tales of tough-talking heroes and duplicitous dames. Today we're taking a look at what a gumshoe story might look like in the 21st century as we travel under the Silver Lake. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Bellavia, and I'm here with
Andres Anglade.
Now, in 2010, writer-director David Robert Mitchell made the coming-of-age drama The Myth of the American Sleepover, and followed that up with one of the most original and talked-about horror movies of the 2010s. The critical hit and box office success, It Follows. Andreas, have you seen either one of those movies?
I've seen It Follows, and that has one of the coolest vibes for a horror film. I really, really like it.
It's funny, the vibes are off the chart, and I love the hook. A shape-shifting monster that chases after you after you've had sex, and the only way to get rid of it is to have sex with somebody else again. Like, sex, death, and shape-shifting are no strangers to horror movies, but I've never seen it combined in quite that way before.
Yeah, it's obvious that this was a talent to keep an eye on, and I really was curious to see what he would do next.
And following up a huge horror hit, you'd have to assume that probably production companies are coming up to him with more horror material. But instead, with the keys to the kingdom and kind of a license to make whatever he wants, instead Mitchell chose a darkly comic detective thriller set in Los Angeles. And it took me a minute to see this one because it played Cannes and it did well, but at the same time it was kind of this mixed word of mouth, and it's not a horror movie, and what's the tone of this thing? And it took a kind of a while to kind of like reach people that I knew. And one of my friends, we're pretty simpatico when it comes to taste, is like, I think this one would be up your alley. All right. I checked it out and he was correct, which is what brings us here today. But what is Under the Silver Lake? So it follows Sam, played by Andrew Garfield, an unemployed, conspiracy-minded young man living in LA who meets Sarah, an attractive neighbor, and he hangs out with her one night. When he finds her apartment abandoned the next day, Sarah and her roommate seemingly up and moving out in the early hours of the morning, Sam grows suspicious. And despite only knowing her for a few hours and facing his own eviction if he can't come up with the rest of the rent, Sam decides to play detective instead and track his potential love interest down. His journey will take him all over the City of Angels, and his search will uncover a series of possible conspiracies, which will shake him to the core. All right, so it's a detective story, guys, and we tried to do a version of this that did not kind of dip its toes into spoilers, but we're going to end up being a very spoiler episode. So please enjoy us for the next few minutes as we're kind of more general, but we're going to move into spoiler territory as this goes on. So this is your warning. Please go watch it. Huge fan of this flick, and we'll see you in a little bit. And if you have seen the movie, excited to discuss it with you right now. At over 2 hours, this is definitely Mitchell, like, again, cashing in his chips from It Follows to make whatever the hell he wants. This is one odd duck of a flick, and I revisited it for the podcast. But Andreas, I know this is your first time. What did you think of Under the Silver Lake?
I laughed a lot with this film in the best possible way. It's, to me, I see it as a modern noir love letter to LA, but it's also poking fun at all the people who crave significance and anyone who feels they're more special than everyone else. It's entertaining. I was curious to see where it goes. I think it overstays its welcome at times, and I do wish it was shorter. But for the most part, I heard Albert Camus laughing along with me. It's an absurdist film, and I think you need to look at it that way to have fun with it. And look, I appreciate the absurdist take, but I also understand how that can be frustrating for a lot of people. Not every mystery is solved. Not every question is answered, but that's how life works. That being said, the life that's shown in this film is a bit too much of a young white man's dream for me. The fact that every woman is taken with him and he's able to just move past some pretty traumatic events with a shrug, it's a bit too white male privilege at times. Like, only someone who looks like Andrew Garfield can appear this sloppy and still be appealing to women, sleep with numerous women, and just walk into parties looking terrible, or even in pajamas and get away with it. If I tried to do that, I'd be arrested.
Well, then I think Andres is a pretty handsome dude, dear listeners. So I think he'd get further than you think for our Under the Silver Lake sequel. But I mean, let's unpack this. That's why here. I think that's part of the point. I think David Robert Mitchell would agree with you, and I think a lot of this film is what do you take at face value, and also what is it commenting on? And I think one important thing just to get out of the way is I think Sam's a prick. And I don't think that's a hidden message. I think he comes off as entitled. I think he's ignoring like his real world duties. He's not paying his rent. Like he's going to be evicted in 5 days. Like it's right there, clear as a bell. He seemingly has not only no job, but no interest in finding employment. Whenever it's brought up, he like scoffs at it throughout the film. He dismisses it. You have no idea what even a 9 to 5 to him would look like.
Yeah.
His apartment is filled with old movie posters, comic books, Nintendo Power. Here's somebody that's stuck in like perpetual like stunted growth there. And I think a very telling early scene is, and this is an updated detective story. So in an old school detective story, maybe some thugs or some goons would like kind of mess around with the hero. Maybe they push him around a little bit. And what would the hero do? He'd punch him out, he'd get one over on him. Well, the Under the Silver Lake version of this is Sam discovers his car has been vandalized. Somebody's keyed a giant dick into it. They've hit it with eggs, and he's already in a foul temper. And he looks over, and it's some kids, and they're going over and they're defacing cars down the block. Okay, so these are some asshole kids. I think they're even listed as stupid kids in the credits. That's their name. So okay, we'd all be upset. We'd all be mad by that. Sure. So he kind of stalks him. He goes over, and then he goes over and he beats the absolute shit out of them to the point where you're not even on his side anymore. That's how brutal it is. And I think that's the film in a nutshell. He's acting as if a detective. He's responding to the things that you and I would respond to. Oh, here's a mystery. Oh, that's kind of interesting. But his reactions, there's just something a little wrong about it, and that's what I like.
Yeah, he goes 0 to 60 very quickly in several parts of the film, but the noir vibe is introduced very quickly. And at first I thought I got kind of excited because they don't really say what his job is, right? Like later on
No.
he runs into an ex-girlfriend who's clearly an actress. So you can think maybe he's an actor, an out of work actor. But in the beginning, I got kind of excited because I was like, oh, is he like a private investigator? That's what he actually does. And he's just this sort of slacker dude. And this is now like a modern take. Like this is what a modern PI would be, but you discover kind of quickly that that's not the case. He's just sort of a slacker who stumbles into this mystery that he must now pursue and solve.
The term shaggy dog, where somebody just takes you on they're telling a story and it keeps going, it's going. And like the whole point is it's supposed to kind of be dragged out. And at the end, it kind of just like stops. This movie starts with a code. We hear at the start of a song, very quickly, we see 4 animals under the Silver Lake. So that's the very first thing we're greeted with is a code. Then the first words we see are a backwards, beware the dog killer. There is a certain level of this entire film is a shaggy dog story. It's taking you all over Los Angeles. He's going to meet all these outlandish characters. There's going to be all this stuff. And can the payoff possibly match the amount of work he's putting into this? And you bring up the length. This is over 2 hours. And there's a certain part of me that's always like, any movie that's more than 2 hours, you almost have to kind of justify your length. So I hear the case that maybe you could trim off here, trim off there. But I think Mitchell's very good at vibes, and that was so present in It Follows, that I enjoy the vibe here. And even when I understand, yes, it is a little long, and I get like, considering where the mystery goes, it's not building up to this grand action-packed climax. It never lost me because I like the vibe that's here. I like this version of Los Angeles, even if it's commenting on how ridiculous everything is here.
That's what kept me engaged. That's what kept me entertained. And again, it's just a playfulness, making fun of so much stuff. I was never bored. I really, really enjoyed the vibe of it.
And also, I think any good mystery, it's what do you populate it with? Because, you're going to meet people that lie to you. You're going to get, probably drugged at some point. There's going to be, possibly a dream sequence involved. And like all that stuff, all that classic stuff's in here. But I like what Mitchell puts in. He's following this rock band around, Jesus and the Brides of Dracula. And I like this. 1, great name. Like 2, love the look of them. 3, I think the song that they make for this film, Turning Teeth, that's a banger. Big fan of that one. There's a chess party. There's the Crypt Club. There's a guy that writes a zine about all the goings on in Los Angeles, like it's haunted history, where he describes the Owl's Kiss, where a nude woman wearing an owl mask will come out and kill you in the dead of night. I like the business that Mitchell packs this story with. Again, it's commenting on how ridiculous all this is, but at the same time, you kind of want to walk with Sam. And like, when the owl's kiss is brought up, you're kind of like, oh, I want to know what happens with that. With the dog killer, you are curious. Oh, where's that going? So I think that's the balancing act of it. It is there is a silliness here, and this is a dark comedy. Like if you search this on Google, it comes up as mystery thriller. And sure, those elements are here, but I think this is a black comedy, number one, with a bullet.
I will say there was a moment where I wanted to ask you, or I wanted to say, Greg, I think this must be how you felt watching Eddington. Because I was laughing my ass off with this movie.
I thought about Eddington more than once on this viewing because I think both of them are commenting on, well, this is where we are right now. And it is funny, like with not to go down too far of an editing a rabbit hole. You can listen to our Eddington episode for all about that. But there's a certain melancholy that hangs over this film and hangs over Sam. And Sam even has, it's funny, one of the things I like about the film is names. Most of the characters in this film, they don't have names. There's Sarah, there's Sam, there's Alan, his buddy that he runs into a party, and there's sporadic characters, but a lot of them are just what they are. Like Sam has a woman he's hooking up with, who he's kind of friends with. We don't, I guess they're fuck buddies, for lack of a better term. She's just actress in the credits. He has a friend of his, played by Topher Grace, who's just bar buddy. So it's just like, it's just, how are these people related to him versus like what is their name? When he's talking to the bar buddy, they're basically saying how trying to track down these mysteries is basically us trying to figure out just some sort of purpose in life because everything's already been discovered already. So it's like, oh, we almost hope there's a conspiracy out there to solve. And I find that's very in tune with Eddington. Eddington tapped into, just this level of like depression that we all have being fed information at all times. This is almost a different type of depression with like an aimlessness. What's my purpose in this world? What's my purpose in this version of Los Angeles? How do I connect anything? So he's giving himself a purpose by trying to solve this mystery, whether or not anybody's asked him to or is paying him to. Well, that's what he's decided to do with his time.
Yeah, but he's also not, he seems to be chasing the wrong purpose. Like this is a purpose he wants to chase as opposed to realizing what he might need to actually chase.
Oh, 1,000%. I thought he's ascribing a value to it that may or may not be there.
Right.
Also interesting, devices. Eddington covered in devices, because that's where we're at. Like right now, I was in Hermosa Beach earlier today. People just on their phones, walking by, that type of thing. That's where we are. This, despite taking part just a few years ago, the phones don't really play in. So it's funny. I'm on the wavelength of what's this trying to say about just this general like, ugh, like this heavy sigh where people are at right now. But also it's not quite a one-to-one of our world. So there's a level of unreality here, absolutely. But by presenting it in such an over-the-top fashion, I think it finds some truths. And two directors that I think it comes out like with giant red letters, like homage to, Lynch and De Palma. This is almost like what if David Lynch was trying to make, a De Palma film from the De Palma-esque musical cues to the level of voyeurism in here. That's De Palma 101. Also Hitchcock, which there's direct references in the film. And then like with Lynch, there's visual cues that call back to Lynch. There's an actor who played a prominent role in Mulholland Drive, who's used here as well, Patrick Fischler, like fantastic in both of these. And I think that's a lot of fun. It's Mitchell, again, commenting on films, commenting on things with this level of like irony, but at the same time, there's still a story. Like it's never too meta where it loses me. And I think that again, that's a balancing act. And if you can pull that off, same thing with Eddington. If you can pull off that kind of careful balancing act, that I'm a fan of that.
It's funny, when I was taking notes while watching the film, I wrote, I love the way it set the chessboard in the first half, keeping the mystery alive. And then all of a sudden we get to a chess party.
That'll come back around later. It is long. Absolutely. But there's little moments where it's like, I wouldn't want to lose that. Oh, damn, I wouldn't want to lose that either. Like, for example, at one point, he's just walking on the street and like he noticed all these women dressed in like similar outfits and they're all going to a casting call because here we are in Los Angeles. But then you just see for like a moment what the casting call looks like and it looks shady as absolute hell.
Yeah,
it's
and
like out of somebody's house and like you're just like, oh, that's not good. So it's a level of kind of humorous and also kind of ominous, which is like the tone of the entire movie. One of my favorite movies of all time is Kiss Me Deadly. It's an adaptation of a Mickey Spillane, Mike Hammer story, but whereas the Hammer in the novel is played as a tough hero, the Hammer in the film is handsome and talented, but also sadistic and cruel. It plays him up as a thug, and it's 100% a detective story, but there's something just off. And I could not recommend that film more. And I also, that off-kilter energy, I also feel is present like here. And again, this is more comedic than that one ever is. I kind of like, I love all detective stories. I mean, I'm a fan of them played straight or whatever. But the level of Sam as, again, I don't think he would get as far as he did if he wasn't as handsome as he is. But again, that's why he cast Andrew Garfield here, who I think played this kind of douchey character well. So Sam goes looking for Sarah. At first, it would look like Sarah's just disappeared, but then there's a news report where one of the wealthiest men in Los Angeles and like somebody with like deep ties to the town, at first they've disappeared, but then the follow-up news report is they've died. And in the car, Sarah and her roommates were there too. So it becomes Sam's quest to kind of avenge Sarah, figure out if there's something else going on. You know, what are the rich and elite up to that he doesn't know about? And in his quest, he discovers some clues that there's these underground bunkers around Los Angeles. So first he's like, oh my gosh, is there a war coming? Is there like, so like, where would your mind spiral to this information? But instead of this being this giant end of the world doomsday scenario, very exciting. Andreas, what's going on?
The elite are able to be entombed. They have, I think, 6 months worth of food. So they're just going to go down there with amazing earthly possessions, with beautiful women, and have sex and eat until they either wither away or kill each other.
I was wondering what happened after 6 months, but you know, they don't explain that part. But like modern day pharaohs, the rich and elite, and not only are they going to go to the afterlife, because as Sam kind of figures this out, he goes like, heaven? And they're like, oh no, much more exclusive.
It's such a good line.
We're going to work backwards a bit from that ending to the rest of the story. There are some side, the dog killer subplot, the owl's kiss subplot. Those are never given a payoff. There's never, like, no one's ever unmasked as the dog killer. At one point, the writer, portrayed by Patrick Fischler, is mentioning the owl's kiss, and it's this beautiful woman who kills people in the night. This supernatural creature shows up at one point, and they kill the writer, and they stalk Sam, and Sam scares them off with a gun, which I like. He pulls, and they go running in the other room. Never to be seen again. You can enjoy that for what it is, but if you're looking for it to go further, to Andres' point, that's not going to be there. But the central mystery, you get an answer. But maybe that's not the answer you're looking for, because it's not the most exciting thing in the world. He doesn't save anybody. He doesn't pull the mask off and like bring anybody to justice. It's him discovering that, you know, Sarah went along willingly. She wasn't kidnapped.
Yeah, and I liked that. For me, one of my favorite moments is when Sam finally reaches Sarah and she says, "You've been looking for me? Why? You hardly know me." And to me, it was like, you've wasted your time. All of this kind of means nothing. And it sort of condemns him, but I'd say the film doesn't go far enough to condemn him. Because even in the end, he's standing on the balcony of the neighbor woman he just slept with. When he's watching the property manager and sheriff enter the apartment, he's just
because he did not pay his rent and he's being evicted.
Yeah. But still, he watches with a slight smirk on his face. And something about that shot tells me this young white man, Greg, he's going to be okay. Things are probably going to work out fine for him.
No, absolutely. I see that, but also I think the film judges him. I don't need to see him like dragged to hell to have that like proven. I think it's his quest was for nothing. He doesn't get the girl. Also, another thing I think the film touches on that really got hammered home for me in this viewing, classism. I think classism is such a huge part of this. At one point, he's like, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says to like the actress that he's hooking up with, "Don't you think the rich know something we don't?" That's early on. And she's like, "Maybe better restaurants." Like it doesn't bother her. Like, okay, well, they know something we don't, whatever. But this idea that, oh, the rich are getting away with something that we don't know about. Well, then later on, he's walking with somebody and they pass by somebody who's unhoused and they ask for money. And he makes a show of patting his pockets. Now, maybe he's got something on and maybe he doesn't. And he doesn't. So the homeless guy is like, "Oh, does your date know you're cheap?" And he flies into a rage. "Hey, fuck you!" And now they're screaming at each other. And he goes on a rant about how much he hates the homeless. And he just met the person he's with. So like he has such disdain. They're like ghosts. They want what we want. They want I think he says, delicious meals. And then when he reaches like the end of his quest and he's going over like the modern day pharaohs, they reference, "We're going to go down and we're going to eat delicious food." He's the homeless to the rich person. He's as inconsequential. And at the end of the film, he is literally homeless. He is being kicked out of his home, the very thing that he was decreeing the other guy for earlier. So I think he's going to be fine, but also I think the movie never stops thinking he's a douche. There's some empathy for Sam. I don't think Sam's 100% a horrible guy. And as Andreas mentioned earlier, why go on this huge quest? Why be so invested in this woman that he just met? He's handsome. He even has somebody he's hooking up with off to the side. It's not like he hasn't been with anybody for a while. He looks up at a billboard several times and it bothers him. And again, it's like, maybe this is another conspiracy theory. Maybe this is part of the overarch. Nope, that's his ex-girlfriend. And when he sees it, that's it. It's hitting him right in the feels. He runs into her later and she has a fiance and he's trying to play it like cool in the moment. And at the end of the film, he's being interrogated. We found some dog, biscuits on you. You don't own a dog. Like, why are you doing this? In the back of his head, he hoped that one day they'd get back together, him and his ex. And she had a dog, and then everything would be back to normal. Everything would be good again if they were back together. And I think there's this level of like nostalgia. Everything that Sam engages with, movies, comic books, video games, it's all nostalgia. This idea of trying to recapture something that's gone that used to bring him joy. And part of that ending where he's looking from his neighbor's place into his place, he's being evicted. I think by default, he has no choice. He's going to have to move on now. So yes, he's not going to be on the street homeless, but I think the choices he's taken have forced him kicking and screaming into now he's gonna have to make some kind of change in his life. And maybe he's back to being his douchey self 3 weeks from now, but he's not going to be in that apartment doing it. So there's some kind of tangible changes there.
I don't know. I feel that it doesn't show that enough. And again, I know in a film that we keep saying you're not going to get answers everywhere, but sure, he needs to move. That's obvious. But there could also be that narrative of him crashing with the woman whose apartment he's currently in for a little bit until he works things out. I wish there was a little bit more given there that would condemn him a bit more, because I do think he sort of just doesn't change as much.
I think the movie views him as douchey. I don't need them to further punish him. That's all. And I get it. Your mileage may vary, viewer, as you go there. As this calls back to him hanging out with Topher Grace. Topher Grace's bar buddy is going over how paranoid everybody is now and how ridiculous it all is. But while he's doing that, he's using a drone to spy on a woman. So it's like, well, I guess we have every right to be paranoid. And as they're spying on this person, and Topher Grace is just like, I think she was like, like a lingerie model or something. She comes in and she takes off her top and she's sitting there in her bra and she just breaks out crying. And it's this voyeuristic moment that in other detective movies or other thrillers or other, De Palma movies, it'd be played for like, ooh, it's sexy, ooh, it's sensual. And instead it's commenting on like, you creep. Yeah. You wanted to see her take off her top too, didn't you? Nobody called him out in that moment. You, the viewer, are like, look at these two creeps. And like, maybe, and also you're the creep too. You're right there with him. The movie gives you enough of like, again, him going back and beating the shit out of those kids. You, the viewer, are like, look at this guy. So I think the movie trusts you to have Sam's number, that it doesn't need to hit him too hard with it as it goes on. But that's my take.
And I also wanted to go back, talking about his ex-girlfriend's billboard. I do love how the last time he sees the billboard, they're covering half her face with an ad for something that involves a clown. And the clown face perfectly lines up with hers. But I like it as a statement towards Sam and towards Andrew Garfield's character, as in, you've been a clown this whole time and what you've been chasing.
Yep. Him holding on to like his favorite Playboy and the water imagery, and that's part of your background, like they're calling back to that. And then he ends up with a woman, they're going skinny dipping and she's trying to give him like some information, and she gets shot, and as she's dying under the water, it calls back to that Playboy. I think that image looks like $1 billion.
That was such an amazing moment. And at first I was annoyed when she was like, oh, have you ever been in there? And he's like, where, the reservoir? And then they go in and I'm like, of course, another woman just throwing herself at him. But then when she swims up to him, she whispers in his ear, I had to make it look like we were going to have sex because I have to tell you, I think someone's following me. And I loved that because she's using this for her own safety as opposed to as a ploy to have sex with him. And ultimately she gets killed.
Another thing that I thought was interesting, not spoiling, food for thought, is the connection to Janet Gaynor his mom's favorite actress.
I like those coincidences. His mom has been watching a movie about her. She sends him a VHS tape of the film when he wakes up after a crazy night and he's in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. He wakes up and gets a phone call from his mom, and she tells him about sending him the tape. He then looks up and he realizes he's right next to Janet Gaynor's headstone. And then when he meets the billionaire's daughter at a party, she's admiring a painting that was painted by Janet Gaynor. So there are all these coincidences. And for me, I just took it as like, those are those crazy coincidences of life. Some people may look to it for meaning, but that's shit that just happens.
Well, I think a version of it's that shit that just happens, but also there's a level of, there's a comfort in that without having to like look too deeply into it. One of Sam's pet projects is he's been studying Wheel of Fortune for the last 7 months because he thinks Vanna White is doing some kind of code to the audience. Just building off that, when he's at the conspiracy theorist, the guy that writes like the zine, like Patrick Filcher's place, what does Patrick Filcher's character collect? What's on the walls?
He collects the hollowed out plaster that's used to make masks of famous actors for like movie roles.
And hey, that's interesting. Not sure I'd put that all over my walls, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay. So the writer goes, I really need to get a family, so I have somebody to leave these to. These people, they need to be remembered. And it's like, well, that's kind of a weird thing. So it's a funny line. It plays up what a loser he is, because like, you know, there's no way he's going to get a family. He's certainly not going to leave it to anybody else. But what struck me about that in this Janet Gaynor conversation is Janet Gaynor means something to his mom. It's funny that when Sam talks to his mom, he's thinking about 1,000 other things. He's like mumbling, he's on the case, he's spying on his neighbor, he's doing like whatever. But like, he's still, you have no indication that he doesn't love his mother. He's just his mom is excited. He's kind of like humoring her with this. But when she sends him the tape, he watches it. He doesn't just throw it in a corner. And the other thing is he has a comfort snack. He eats saltine crackers and orange juice. And like, that's something he does and whatever.
Didn't he learn that from Sarah? Because Sarah said it the first night they were hanging out. Didn't she say like...
Oh, yes. So he's eating Sarah's comfort snack while watching the mom's movie. So here's 2 pieces of nostalgia that aren't solving a mystery, that aren't part of anything else, that he's just enjoying himself, and he's getting comfort out of that. There's no level of irony. There's nothing else attached to it. And also going back to Patrick Filchler's, you know, oh man, I have somebody to leave this to. His mom is sharing something. Here's my nostalgia for this person. I really enjoy this. Hey, would you like this? It's a human to human moment without any of the other bullshit he's been attaching to everything else throughout the rest of the movie. Similarly, his neighbor, often topless, has birds and they're constantly making noise. And one of them is saying something. Well, a parrot saying something. So in another movie, you would think that parrot's going to say something that's going to unlock the mystery. And that's how he's going to discover what happened to his neighbor. It's going to give away like this clue. Eventually he's over there and he asks her, after he sleeps with her, what's the parrot saying? And the neighbor's like amused. I'm like, I don't know. And it interests them too. So I think it's like, we all have these mysteries. The asking about a mystery or pursuing something, that's human nature, baby. We're all going to do that. But becoming an obsessed weirdo where you're beating the shit out of people. He also beats the shit out of Jesus, the lead singer. Like that's way over the top.
When he's on the toilet, no less. Yeah. The most vulnerable place you can be.
So not everybody has to be a psycho about it, but I like the movie acknowledges, yeah, these things are here. And like, I don't think the movie's saying nostalgia's bad. Just don't be a psycho about it.
Looking at the cereal box and saying, I feel like the map inside here is the key to everything. It's those people that hold on to things like cereal boxes or old Nintendo magazines or
this stack of Nintendos that are just taking up space are going to be the key to unlocking this thing that I've been, there's a reason. It's a good thing I held on to these. It's a good thing I didn't throw these out. But I love it. It lands with, that's true. It's true. He's right. He's right about the codes. He's right about Nintendo Power. He's right. And then it doesn't give him anything at the end. All right, you're right. But also, I like that it pays it off because there's also a version of this where he never gets any answers. And that's the point of the film would be, that's not the message. The message, even if you get what you're after, you're the dog that catches the tire. Well, now what? How did that impact your life in any meaningful way? It's not the most action-packed ending, and I get that. And also I see how that could be a turnoff, but also it's hard. Like, do you answer the mystery? Yes or no? If you do, how satisfying can it be? I think they do a pretty good job trying to bring this in for a landing.
There's the moment where the homeless king asks him, why do you have these dog biscuits in your pocket? He sort of is that dog that's just chasing after something. And once he has it, he doesn't know what to do with it.
Anything you want to say before we head over to categories?
I'm curious what your take on the homeless king is. Because I think the concept is fun, but when he's shackled in the end, I almost wish the king would have given him a stern talking to about the way he treated that homeless guy by the water reservoir.
I think that would, sure. I think you could have tied that up more. I think there's a level of just the entire city's in on it, whatever it is. And like, even again,
Okay.
even his disdain towards the homeless are in, like, everybody's in on it. That's the other thing. Nothing is going to change. There's been no actionable change in the status quo based on what he has done. He's learned something, whether or not his, again, even to our conversation, whether or not Sam's life changes, that remains to be seen coming out of all this. But I
Yeah.
just think, like, it goes beyond, there's nothing you can do. And even like Sam asked the homeless king, "Are you going to kill me?" I don't think so. We might. I'm not sure yet. I love that. It's like, no, maybe 2 days later they're gonna blow him away. Again, like, going back, just answering, in real time your question. I think he looks down on people, and I feel like we're all in this together. And even the modern day Pharaoh thing. Where are you escaping to? The whole speech he gets about this Pharaoh thing is how this world is garbage. We're going somewhere else. Why would you care about the concerns of this world? Are they? They're not going anywhere. They're going
Yeah.
to die in a
Yeah.
hole covered in concrete. He buys into a certain level of bullshit. The rich are buying into the exact same level of bullshit. And I guess before we head into categories, maybe we could talk about Sam's little talk with the songwriter character.
Before we get to that, I just want
Yeah.
to shout out. So there's a shot of the songwriter's house that is clearly a matte painting, and it has that great sort of old school score on it. It was at that point I kind of wish there was a black and white version of the film, because I'd
Oh,
want to see that. That shot to me just rang out. You know, like Mad Max Fury Road has a black and chrome edition. Godzilla Minus One did a black and white version. I think a black and white version of this movie would be cool.
the straight up no chaser under the Silver Lake
Yeah.
version. No, I'm in. I'm in.
And then also when he gets to the room of the songwriter and he's asking him about the code, there's a stuffed coyote behind him, which takes you back to what the king of the homeless said, in that don't run from a coyote, it'll run from you, and just follow it and see where it goes, which he actually does later on.
Yep. His detective trials and tribulations bring him to this house, again, wonderful matte painting, and the songwriter lives there. And it's somebody clearly in prosthetic makeup, but in the world of the movie, they're an old person who's been writing songs forever. They have a ton of different instruments. That's just what they do. Andres, what is the purpose of the songwriter?
He has been writing every single hit song since. Well, that wasn't clear to me, because he says he basically said he's been writing every single hit song, but he doesn't give a timeline. So I didn't know if he was supposed to be sort of immortal. Did he start playing a classical
He
song?
does. He says your father at one, not Sam's literal father, but he means just
Yeah.
I've been playing for so long. And then I think he says grandfather. So I think those are the only two times where he like so I don't know if we're supposed to take immortal. I think we're supposed to take away he's been writing pop music for a very long time.
I had two thoughts. One was, okay, maybe he's just sort of the inventor of music and has been playing music since, maybe he's not immortal, but since the time of Beethoven, who knows? Or number two, like you said, he's just been writing pop music. And if you think about when pop music started emerging and going more mainstream, and it became this sort of massive industry as opposed to just playing music for pleasure, where capitalism really took the reins of music. Maybe that's when he started.
And not just writing music, writing codes into the music. And
Yeah.
so this is paying off. This totally plays off of what Sam believes is happening. The rich have this whole code down that we don't even understand. So if you're listening to a Nirvana song, they're conveying something there that you and I are not going to pick up on. And the songwriter can't even, like, basically Sam's trying to call him, like, what do these codes mean? What's the purpose of it all? And the songwriter's like, hey man, just a paycheck. Doesn't matter to him. Somebody pays him to write X, Y, and Z into the song. X, Y, and Z goes in. He moves on to the next thing. He doesn't care. So this whole mystery that Sam's investigating, songwriter could not care less about. And the big reveal is, Sam's a big Nirvana fan. In fact, he has a signed Nirvana poster in his room, signed by Kurt Cobain's daughter, but that doesn't matter. It's still signed, so it's there. And some of their songs also had they're a victim of the same conspiracy as everybody else in the world. I acknowledge that is an over-the-top scene. You got an actor in prosthetics, giant, world-encompassing conspiracy. I really like it. I love their back and forth. I love the absolute disdain the songwriter has for just literally everything. Sam's quest. It's not just that he wrote codes in this music. That code from 30 years ago, who fucking cares? It's passed on. It doesn't even matter. Even if that was between US and Russia, nukes going off, like the most important stuff in the world, all these years later, just another song he wrote. He can't even remember what it's about anymore.
Or what the code was for. Yeah, it's interesting because you could also even look at it as him just lying. Like, what if he was lying? You wouldn't even know.
Yep.
Like, maybe he hadn't been writing codes for that long. He happened to write codes for the last 2 years, and that's the one that Sam stumbled upon. That's how much it just doesn't matter. Again, the absurdist take.
Yep.
I saw a comment on Reddit that said, quote, I believe the movie's point is to steer us away from looking for meaning and make us understand that it's precisely this kind of vision that leads Sam, a person obsessed with understanding, deciphering, and finding the secret pattern of life, into a perpetual existential crisis.
Absolutely. I think also part of it is like he doesn't know Sarah. It's different if somebody he loved, somebody he was connected to, somebody who ever disappeared. So it's not, there's certain mysteries worth pursuing. This isn't one of them. And again, part of I read into it, this is him killing time because he's getting over his breakup. Like he's just, well, he's still heartbroken from the ex. You know, Sarah seems interesting. That's the new person. And then he's already conspiracy minded to begin with. So this is kind of feeding into stuff that he's picking up on anyway. It's not that there aren't, worthwhile mysteries, just he's over the course of this film not choosing to maybe engage in the healthiest behavior, to put it.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And that goes into my heart of the film. Slacker white guys would rather deal with conspiracy mysteries and sleep with beautiful women than deal with the reality of not being able to afford rent. To add on with what you just said, also dealing with his breakup. He doesn't want to deal with what he actually needs to deal with. So he comes up with this mystery that he needs to follow. The mystery does take him through a lot, but ultimately there is no payoff for him. Again, one of my favorite moments was when Sarah says that to him. Oh, you've been looking for me? Why? You hardly know me. I'm sure he was expecting a bigger reaction from her. So I just love that moment that it sort of puts him in his place.
Also, real fast though, she's also not heartless in the moment either. She's touched by the gesture.
Yeah.
But there's also nothing like, oh, that's sweet, but there's nothing you can do about it. Kind of a throwaway line. She says she has to go make dinner. And it's like, you're trapped in there with other people. So it's just like, I love this idea of it's this ultra rich thing. It's so exclusive. It's so awesome. Hey man, somebody's still got to make dinner. And they're watching like an old TV show in the bunker. It's like, I could watch an old TV show in my apartment right now. I don't need this. So I love how unglamorous the giant glamorous reveal is.
Yeah. What's your heart of the film?
It's a quote from earlier from one of the characters. It's silly wasting your energy on something that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I saw a cartoon yesterday from House of Decline online, and it's, I'm paraphrasing, but look them up. They're great. And it's somebody coming up on a person named like Bluegrass Joe. And they're like, Bluegrass Joe, it's terrible out there. And they're like, all Bluegrass Joe cares about is bluegrass. And they start playing bluegrass. And the other person's like, Bluegrass Joe, they're going to kill us. And then the final panel is just them playing bluegrass. That's it. And the author wrote, is Bluegrass Joe oblivious to human suffering, or do they merely care to concentrate on the only things they can control?
I love that. Yep. Yeah, because I think sometimes you just reach a point where it's like, well, you can only worry about what you can control.
And he's not controlling his rent, finding a job, like some other things that are right there. It's solving a citywide mystery. All right. Favorite scene?
There are a lot of great scenes in this film. I couldn't argue against most of them, but I'm going to pull a Greg, and I got to go with him following the three girls in the rabbit. And yes, the Alice in Wonderland White Rabbit reference did not elude me. But if I had to pick one scene out of the whole section, and this is when he sees a girl in Sarah's apartment grab a box, and then he decides to follow them around. One part of him following them, they end up at a purgatory party, which is at the Standard rooftop bar in LA. And I loved that whole scene there. Everything taking place at that party was great to me.
It's hard for me to pick one. I love him beating the shit out of those kids because it's so violent and just not expecting it to go there. But that's silly. That can't be the number one. I like him in the Crypt Club. At one point, he's dancing. There's balloon. See, there's nooks and crannies here. I guys just have to go see the movie. But there's Balloon Girl. This girl is always like blowing up balloons or covered in balloons. They're at a party. They're giving people pins to pop the balloons on her. And in the Crypt Club, they're playing What's the Frequency, Kenneth, the REM song. One, great song. Two, I love the nostalgia in the club, continuing the nostalgia theme. But three, do you know what the history of what that song is?
No.
A man walked up and robbed Dan Rather saying, Kenneth, what's the frequency? And
Oh,
they wrote, there was so a paranoid exchange and frequency and are we being controlled or whatever. And like instead it's turned into a groovy pop tune. And that's what they're cutting rug to. So I love that, but I'm gonna have to give it to him and the songwriter. There's so many good quotes in there. I love how they both play it, the dawning horror and the delight on the songwriter's face to be kind of rubbing it in. And we didn't mention it earlier. Sam beats him to fucking death with Kurt Cobain's guitar. Like the end
yeah.
is him like brutally killing this guy. Now the guy was trying to kill Sam, so it's technically self-defense, but crazy end to a crazy scene that I greatly
But
enjoyed.
he was letting out a lot of anger in there.
Well, finding out that your childhood is a lie, that's rough.
I did also want to mention again the drone scene that was up there as favorite scene. And also, I mentioned it earlier, the chess party scene. I just love that as this sort of, it's so eccentric and so out there that you just believe, of course, someone would host a chess party like that in LA. I
I'd
love
love to go to a chess party. Maybe we should
Yeah.
get that started. I'll follow off you. Favorite shot? My favorite shot's the drone. There's some great stuff. Getting ready to go skinny dipping, where you see the reservoir, you see the moon, and you see the Hollywood sign. That's gorgeous. Put that on a poster. Her dead body floating in the same way as the Playboy model you saw earlier. That's great. But the drone shot of the supposed model getting more and more upset, condemning the characters and condemning you, the viewer, for being a voyeur, that's great. It's kind of funny. It's kind of sad. I think it lands. It's unexpected. That's my number one. Well, what's your favorite shot?
There's a moment where he's at the Standard and the three girls are in the pool. We cut to him in the pool, hiding behind a beach ball, trying to be inconspicuous. And I couldn't quite tell, like, it seems like he's fully clothed, but they don't ever reveal that. But I just thought that whole moment, that entire moment, that shot was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. But I also do like there's another scene before that where they're at Echo Park Lake and he's jogging down towards the lake to try and hide behind a tree. Just the way he's sort of jogging and trying to not draw attention to himself, where he just looks ridiculous jogging down to the tree. And then there's that quick cut to him in the pedal boat at Echo Park Lake. I thought was hilarious too. Oh, and then the other shot I wanted to talk about, because you talked about the De Palma and Hitchcock references. There's a moment at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery where they're watching a film at night, and then we see the reveal of Hitchcock's gravestone. And from that shot, we cut to an extreme close-up, but it's a split diopter De Palma shot of Sam and then the screen of what's happening on the movie.
And that's the myth of the American sleepover. So I love him showing his own movie in there. And then characters from that movie, they're part of an escort service hooking people up with actresses from like different TV shows and things. So I like the meta one. I think it's just a neat something to include in, a film noir that kind of calls back LA Confidential, prostitutes cut to look like famous movie stars, like similar there, but like putting a funny spin on it. And also I love calling back to his previous movie.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's great.
Okay, MVP.
So for me, it's going to be a tie. It's between the cinematographer, Mike Giolakis, and forgive my pronunciation, and then also the director, David Robert Mitchell. And just because of the way the film looks and the vibe they're able to capture, it would not have kept my attention if those two weren't working so well together.
Oh, those are good. Those are good. I'm going to go Andrew Garfield. I think again, similarly, I think he's the glue that holds this together. Like I enjoy, and again, I don't love Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, but I can empathize with him. I don't love Sam here, but I can empathize with him. And I too am interested in the mystery, even though I think he should be spending his time doing other things. And also, I hate to say it, like sometimes cinematically, I'm the voyeur too. I get that. So it's like I think it's trying to teach you, the viewer, a lesson there, not thinking you, the viewer, are necessarily that much better than Sam at the same time too. So I think there's a level of rawness together, and he's funny, he's engaging. Again, to your point, I don't think he'd be getting away with sleeping with this many people and getting into these parties if he wasn't attractive Andrew Garfield. So I think that's a well cast character as well. I think he plays it really well. Also, he's a talented cat, and you just see him in Spider-Man, you see him in Silence, which we'll talk about one day. And like these are different performances. And I like seeing this kind of seedier scumbag side of him here.
Yeah, he's perfectly cast. There's a different kind of aura around him that attracts people to him. You need that for this character because, like you said, he is douchey, but he gets away with it. And you have to believe that someone could do that. He can.
If he was a unattractive schlub and the script was the same, that would be funny
It
because
would be.
it'd be playing with the expectation. But I don't think that rings true. I think as outlandish as this all is, I think by having it be Andrew Garfield, I think he's willing to get away with certain things in the film, and that rings true in a way.
And then speaking of the Spider-Man, I do love the bit where when he finds that his car's been vandalized, he gets some sticky substance on his hands, and then he gets that hand stuck to an Amazing Spider-Man comic book, and he's trying to shake it off as if it was his spider webbing keeping him from getting it off.
Underrated element.
The score by Disaster Piece. I love how it's playing with the noir vibe, and it just hits in all the right moments. You said it before, but it's definitely the score for me.
You know, I was gonna go the whole Owl's Kiss subplot, but it's also like it's very eye catching when it happens. And Patrick Fischler, he's you've seen him around, like I'm a huge fan, but like, you know, if you see a picture of him, like, oh yeah, that guy, fantastic character actor. I almost feel like that's too high profile for underrated elements. So I do love that. I'm gonna go Ricky Lindholm as the actress, like his fuck buddy. She's only in 2 scenes, but like one important at getting like exposition like over the finish line. Also, I think she throws a lot into it. She's very physical in the scenes that she's in, and like I definitely like throwing herself into it, and that's awesome. I think she's funny, and also he's the first one to kind of break down one of his conspiracy theories, like in depth. So he's getting into like the whole Vanna White thing. I think she plays it realistically back. Like she doesn't believe him. That sounds crazy, but she also doesn't like overplay it, and she just kind of sees her way out. And she's not in much of the film, but I think for that character just being kind of a friend of his, she's there to kind of move the plot along in the background of like while they're hooking up, you get like a news report on the rich guy disappearing. Like there's certain stuff there. I think she plays it well. And again, going back to Garfield's relationship to other characters, I think there's a level of realism there that comes across. And then she disappears for the back half of the film. So I don't want to forget about her. I think she does a fine job here.
She's great in this. And I do love that moment where he's really he's telling her his conspiracy theory, and then he just kind of looks at her and goes, "Oh, you think that's crazy?"
Yeah. Who's having the most fun?
For me, it's David Robert Mitchell. I think he's making the exact film he wants to make. I don't see any compromise in this thing, and I love that for him. Plus, to be able to show it at Cannes and have it get nominated for a Palme d'Or, that's amazing. I guarantee he was having a lot of fun.
Well, you said that so well. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. That was my number one.
Nice.
What scene would you show someone to hook them?
I'd go with the drone scene. It has great dialogue. You know, Sam's line, you ever feel like you effed up somewhere a long time ago and you're living the wrong life? Like a bad version of the life you're supposed to have? And then we see, you know, like we described before, his friend uses the drone to be a peeping Tom. I love that the moment puts them in their place, and it even subverts our expectations. Like you said, in any other noir film, they treat it as the typical male gaze. I think if you like the vibe of that scene, you can have fun with the rest of the film. It also doesn't give a lot away.
On the level of something that I like the vibes, him in the Crip Club. I think him with Balloon Girl and then dancing to What's the Frequency Count. And also another piece of business is he's given a cookie at a party before that party, and that's entry into this secret party. And they make a point of like, I don't want to see a crumb off this cookie to get entry. And it's like, all right. He shows up and he shows the cookie, and they're like, well, you have to take a bite of that cookie. You're like, all right. So he stuffs the whole thing in his mouth. Well, it's drugged. And I love that piece. So it's him dancing, him getting like horribly sick because he took too much of that cookie. I like the energy of it. It's him doing detective work. And like you said, he doesn't solve a huge part of the mystery during that scene. It just gives you a little bit of a flavor for this LA world that he's in.
That's a good one.
All right. T-shirt quote.
I can't quite see it, but I'm close. He needs to realize I can't quite see what I should be following, what I should be pursuing, what I should be putting all my energy into, but he's close.
Again, it's silly wasting your energy on something that doesn't matter. It's hard to know what a person might do when they're in pain. He says earlier, and that's him the whole time. Like, that's the other thing. He's in pain, but he's acting like such a douche that we don't really give him like credit. But once you figure out the heartbroken part, maybe you cut him a little bit of slack. You don't ever think rich people know something we don't? Good restaurants, maybe. Again, I like that line.
I love when his friend says, "We crave mystery because there's none left."
Yep. Where's the mystery that makes everything worthwhile? I'm convinced about a box of cereal. I'm convinced that map is the key to everything I've been searching for my whole life. Him paying off one of the actresses as part of the escort service, her saying, "You're a patron of the arts." That director, those big action films based on household cleaning products. I'd watch that. I fucking hate the homeless. They're bullies. I think that funny. Just it's so venomous. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting. At one point, he goes to describe Sarah, and he goes, "She was really nice." And the first time we meet Sarah, it's her refusing to turn her stereo down. So it's like, that's totally him project. He does not know this person. He has no idea if she's nice or not, but he's putting her up on this pedestal. So I think it's a very telling little moment where it's like, you don't know if she's nice or not. And so anyway, that's funny. But my number one from the songwriter, there is no rebellion. There's only me earning a paycheck. Ice cold, but little truth for Sam. Are there any Oscars you would give this?
Best cinematography and best score, hands down.
Those are great. I'm going to add Best Actor, Andrew Garfield, Best Screenplay. I as an homage to classic noirs while putting kind of a funny modern spin on it. I think Mitchell does great work here. And I'm also excited for he has new material coming out soon. He hasn't had a feature release since this one, so I'm excited for that.
I'm really excited for it.
We always like to wrap up with a crew shout out. And, normally I try and go a little bit deeper, but Andreas, you've been touching on him the whole time. Rich Vreeland, AKA Disaster Piece for the score. I love the score for It Follows. That gives very 80s Carpenter vibes while also being its own thing, while also standing on its own 2 feet, but you get what they're going for. You get that feeling. And this is not that. And this to me is very De Palma-y. And again, without being a total ripoff, trying to invoke a feeling. So again, you said that helped kind of thread the whole thing together. I agree. They also worked on It Follows and Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which I think is a delightful family movie. So I watched that with the kid. Huge fan of that one. And also very good soundtrack.
This film doesn't work without the perfect Los Angeles locations, or more specifically, Silver Lake locations. So my crew shout out is location manager Jay Trainer. And other credits include Almost Famous, Daisy Jones and the Six, and most recently Good Fortune, which is a fantastic LA set story.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming along on this journey. I would highly recommend checking it out. If you've seen it once, I'd honestly say check it out again because there's more Easter eggs in there. People on the Reddit are still updating it, just still finding little crumbs and sharing information. I think that's great. And also, I think it's a movie that it's fun to pick it apart because you're never going to get to the bottom of everything. That's the point. So it's both commenting on something and also being a detective story at the same time. And I think that's a neat trick if you can pull it off. And I think Mitchell and company pulled it off.
I'm not going to say this is the greatest film ever made, but this is the kind of film that needs to be made more often. There's so much pressure put on box office. And yes, I understand it's show business, emphasis on business, but not every film needs to be an event film. And that's what it feels like nowadays. Everything has this major marketing push to be this big thing. Sometimes you just want to sit back and chill, much like Andrew Garfield's character. You get mixed up in some shenanigans, but this, to me, was a refreshing film and was a nice little escape for a couple hours. I had fun with it. I get why some people might not dig it, but I want more movies like this. I want more filmmakers given the chance to take swings like this, even if it isn't for everyone.
Well said.
That was a fun movie. I was laughing so much.
Oh, well, I appreciate you watching it. Great.
Yeah, this movie was really not on my radar at all. I'm glad you suggested it because I really did enjoy. Again, I know you dig the night owl thing. I honestly think that could have been cut out. Now, I don't mean cut out the comic book writer.
Yeah.
But I think the night owl aspect, if you had to shorten it, that would be my vote.
No, if you put a gun to my head, you have to cut this down. I think that's the first thing you'd cut because it doesn't pay off anywhere. But I agree. Parallel conversation to that one. I like a movie where there's like moments sometimes that are just like kind of like just like hanging threads. I enjoyed that, so I don't. But there's a version where it's like that doesn't work. So I think that's totally like your mileage may vary. Him scaring them with the gun where they run in the room, and then him searching around and him opening the drawer and having like the pistol shoved in the ground. That has some of my favorite laughs in the movie. I almost called out while we're on this the Owl's Kiss actress, but they're uncredited. So it is on there, but I'm like, well, if they're uncredited, maybe they didn't want that to be out there. But I love how they move like this owl, like the way their feet are arched and everything. I think it's a cool physical performance. But again, if they want to leave it alone, I'm not going to bring that up. So no, there's an hour 45 version of this.
Maybe 2 hours. 2 hours is fine because it's like 2 hours and 20, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think if you would have gotten rid of 20, it would have been But again, I wasn't bored watching it though.
That's my thing. I feel like if my patience was flagging, it's similar to Eddington, like 2.5. Those are long. And again, once something crosses 2 hours, there is a level of me. It's like, you have to justify, why did you add that additional material? But I think just the level of, it's a citywide conspiracy. It didn't wear out its welcome. But like, I get, if the studio notes, and again, this is also this guy pushing his chips into the, hey, it follows as a hit. Great. You want to make the movie 220? Fine. Go ahead, do it. What was this, 2016? I'm not 2017?
2018.
I don't think you'd get away with that now.
No.
So it's funny, we're not even 10 years later.
But that's why I said I want more filmmakers to be given the chance to do something like this, because it doesn't look cheap. Whatever money they were given, you see it on screen. And I miss that.
I am rooting for this new one.
I didn't think the trailer was good.
I agree.
But I think it's a case of they can't give too much away.
I agree.
So this could be a big word of mouth film. It's almost one of those that's like, well, you might need to go see it opening weekend because you don't want anything spoiled.
You might have just sold me on going to see it, actually.
I'm going to go see it. I want to support original ideas, so I'm going to go see it.
Also, I heard about this on the horror podcast I listened to, but he's doing They Follow. So the sequel.
And that's greenlit for sure? Or is it? Yeah. I feel like they've been talking about it for a while. Okay.
So shooting this year, is he doing that because what else is he being offered? Or is he doing that because he has an idea? Or maybe both. So hey, I hope it's awesome. But my fear is, shit, what's getting made today? I can make a sequel to It Follows.
Well, let's look at this, though. The timeline, right? This came out in 2018, nominated for Palme d'Or, but kind of got buried, didn't get a massive theatrical release. 2 years later, whatever project you had in development went to shit because it was 2020 and COVID, right? Yeah. So let's say he did have a project and everyone was like, yeah, let's do it. Oh, COVID hit, we're scaling back, we're not doing anything. Then he's probably like, again, pure speculation, but maybe he was like, you know what, I want to move on, I want to do something else. He pitches something, then the writer's strike. So now this movie's coming out in 2026, probably shot 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 2024. So coming off of the writer's strike, I think it's fair to say you could subtract 4 years from that entire gap as a legitimate, what is this gap in your resume? It's an explainable gap, if that makes sense. So
I agree. It's an explainable, no, 100%. Just more of like, who's anybody getting anything made?
Yeah.
Right now. And again, I hope this does well. It's just, I think you're one thing away. And look, also, I think They Follow could be awesome. You know, and I wouldn't say that just about any horror. There's plenty of horror movies that I like that I'd be like, don't make a sequel to that. Like The Witch. I love The Witch. Don't make a sequel to The Witch.
Yeah.
Babadook. Don't make a sequel to the Babadook. Like literally, like that's one where I'm like, I bet you could do something cool with that.
Yeah.
Legit. So he's 2 for 2 in my book. I want to see the sleepover one because people like that. I just didn't have time to fit it in. It's just to compare, like, what does that look like compared to these two? I hope the new one's good. So I mean, like, maybe he's just such a good writer director that he's gonna knock it out of the park with that. But
It Follows has one of my favorite cuts where the guy's in the hospital and then it just cuts to him flirting with girls in like the hospital cafeteria. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you don't even hear the dialogue. You just have that music and that push in on him. And you're just like, oh, fuck, you know exactly what he's doing. It's so good. I should rewatch that.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Real Demers. If you enjoyed what you heard, please support us by leaving a like, subscribe, or review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. You can find us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to reach out and send a comment, you can email us at realdemers@gmail.com. Our music is by Adolfo Delanoy, and you can check him out on Instagram at Adolfo Delanoy. Until next time, everybody.